We are here with my favorite person to sit down and interview. This is the third week of interviews. We are 6 weeks into the season. We have Mr. Joe Johnson. Sir, welcome to the show. Like, I think I'm more excited than you are. And when we were texting, setting this stuff up, you seem pretty darn excited. So, how we doing?
Yeah, second time doing an interview with Josiah. It's always a pleasure, man. I love being, alongside you here and just kind of just talking and chatting about baseball. It's the best, man.
Dude,
This is I wish I can get paid to do this, man. I really do.
I I love doing it, not like even not getting paid. But if I could just do this 24/7, especially with somebody like you, Ronald Reagan's always a good time. Cleveland Rocks is always a great time. Um, but let's just dive into it, baby, because we are
Do it.
in a completely different spot than we were when I interviewed you last year.
That's
Um,
right.
so last year was your rookie season. Um, we kind of got a little bit into like your insight last year, right? And when
Mm.
we did your interview, it was a lot of you kind of saying, "I have no idea what I'm doing." And I didn't realize this was as serious as it was, right? Um, where are you now? Now that we're into year two, week six, like where's your mindset compared to where it was last year?
Yeah, man. I mean, my mindset here, I guess it's just it's a lot more focused on the balance of my lineup now than it was last year. And I mean, the draft last year really messed me up, and it really is a key component in like how you're gonna do for the rest of the year. But yeah, I think now like with that experience in the rearview mirror, like I've really tried to like construct my lineup in like a balanced set of having a good enough amount of pitchers and position players in order to kind of see success and just be consistent with putting points on a weekly basis. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you've done that. I went through some of the scores, and I would say you're sitting about the same, right, every week.
Yeah.
Um, obviously, as a manager, you'd like to see your team kind of do better and better every week as you add players and drop players. Not always possible, especially because pitchers are either putting up big points or you're losing a lot of points.
Yeah.
Um, you started off 1-3, right? Which
Hmm.
is actually not that bad. You played a lot of good teams to start the season. Cleveland Rocks kind of like beat the heck out of you.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. That's an understatement.
you had to play me, and that was in the first
Oh,
3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? But you've
yeah. On
come
top
back,
of Danielle in the first week,
yeah.
you know.
And to be fair, like that first week, we didn't know what she was gonna be this year. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about this a couple times, but we did not expect her to be undefeated.
No.
Um,
6-0. That's I think that's the last thing we all expected.
Yeah, it's very impressive. But you started off 1-3. You're on 2 game winning streak. How are you? What did you kind of change? What did you have to do to kind of get back on that horse and back into things?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a position like Danielle 6-0, right? And I look, she's acquired 4 players this year. That is crazy, month and a half. You look at like Isaiah Ronald Reagan, he has over 30 acquisitions. I have 20. I'm kind of like right in the middle there. So, for me, it's a balance of like you're gonna have the injuries. I lost O'Neal Cruz. I got the Grom on the IL, guys that I picked like high up to get the draft going, and no, it's bumps in the road that you're just gonna have to like find replacements and find substitutes, and be patient with players too. Guys like Arenado who are batting under 200 the first month, I was so close to dropping him, and now he's hit 4 home runs in 4 days, and the guy's finding his swing, and so you gotta be, a lot of it is just patience, and it's just trying to like kind of piece together like what you want to see at the end of the year, like how your lineup wants to see. Yeah, for me, as long as I have like about 10 to 12 people starting that week, and then having the fillers of the relief pitchers who can come in during that week and put up positive points, not negative points. And then you have the position players that you assume that they're due, or that they can, be reliable. Guys that are getting, on base, looking at the on base slugging percentage, looking at certain statistics to then make your decision. Okay, I'm going to run with this guy this week, or I'm going to rock Jeff McNeil in utility this week. You know, just those types of things, really.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I mean, I picked up Scherzer and Verlander, right? Then they're
Yeah,
both on the IL. Then one of them gets suspended. And then they come
yeah.
back and have a negative 13-point week, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and to be honest with you, some of my decision making even sometimes is I want to drop this guy, but I don't want anybody else to have him because I know that if I'm patient with them and if I wait, I could see big success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now part of it is how long do you wait? How long can you be patient with some of these guys? Because there is a cutoff point where
Yeah.
they're just not doing it, right? Um, but let's kind of bring it back just a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
talk about your draft, okay? Because like you said, you've had 20 acquisitions, so there's a lot of guys that number one, I'm assuming a lot of them you probably picked them up partway into the season, then dropped them again, right?
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of your team is guys that you drafted originally? So what percentage
Mm-hmm.
is still there? And what was your plan going through that draft, right? With as many acquisitions and transactions, I guess, as you have.
Absolutely. And you know, and a lot of the acquisitions I made were guys that like I wanted to draft, but people picked them before me. And so I got lucky. So I wanted so I would say first off to answer your question, 60 or 70% of my lineup I would say it's still like the guys I drafted are still the guys I'm rocking with today.
That's a good
Um
percentage.
yeah, but you know, like guys like I dropped like Lodolo, and like he's a solid left-handed pitcher, but he's gotten rocked a couple times. So, you know, it's a little too inconsistent for my lineup, and how I run things over the Joe Johnson's HQ there. Like going ahead, I know I got a early in the year in like April, I got a trade offer for Ronald Reagan, and he was offering me like Domingo Herman and someone else. He wanted like Emmanuel Clase, and I was not giving up Clase. A
No,
solid relief pitcher who you could pretty much count
one
on
of the
to be
best.
like as an elite. Yeah, one of the best, absolutely. And so then when I noticed he dropped Domingo Herman. So, you know, there you go. Picked him up. I know he's a solid starting pitcher. He's young, but he gets the job done. And I like him. I think he fits with like what I got going on in my lineup. And then also Masataka Yoshida. I was super high on him to like have a great year coming from Japan, being great on the Red Sox. Wanted to draft him, didn't draft him. Noticed he got dropped after he was going like 0 for his last 20. Picked him up, then he got hot again, and that's baseball, man. It was such a I don't know who dropped him. Such a lousy like it just a really bad decision to drop him like that because you know he's a great hitter. You're gonna have slumps, but you can't count on guys who are solid to keep that slug going. They're not gonna you know, wear the golden sombrero for too long. So I was happy that he was in the market and I was able to pick him up out of my team. Some of the guys that I missed on the draft, I was able to grab and snag. But you know, we're in May and it's still a work in progress. I feel like by July or June, late June, you should have a good idea of like this is the lineup I'm rocking with going into postseason in August.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know who dropped him either, right? But but if I could read their mind right now, I would say that they deeply regret it.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not gonna say it was Angel Hernandez, but you know, I think y'all can tell from my reaction to your statements on Yoshida
Mm.
what idiot that was. Yeah, I totally agree. I think like our season's a little bit different, right? Because the All Star break is not technically in the middle. The All Star
Mm.
break, though, is that end of the season run. You know, that's kind of that marker. Um, in the actual season, it might be like late July, beginning of August, where that run is for those teams that are looking to make the
Mm.
playoffs. But in our league, the All Star break is that last third, right? Um, so yeah, I totally agree with you on like kind of where your head's been at picking up those guys. I made two very dumb drops. I dropped Strider and I dropped Yoshida, right?
Mm.
Two of the biggest point guys right now,
Yeah.
and I regret that. Big mistakes, you know. But we all make mistakes, and it's really about who we can pick up and the consistency that we can continue to score, right?
Yeah.
So looking at your bullpen, uh, like you said, you like to have about 12 guys that are starting each week or going
Yeah.
to be pitching throughout the week. Where do you stand on relief pitchers? Because even a good outing for them may only be 4 or 5 points, but it could be also 10 or 15, right?
Right.
How do you weigh that between starters and relief pitchers?
Yeah, I think you gotta kind of look at, like, again, it's the well-known names, the ones that then they're not going to stay bad forever. Clay Holmes, I mean, he's a great, highly touted relief pitcher. He's had some rough starts. Presley as well, he's right there with them. But yeah, like Jose Alvarado, a guy that I snagged, who is I mean, a historic start to the season, and now he's hurt. He's on my IL, but pitching under, he pitched like a .76 ERA. The guy had like 24 strikeouts in his first 20 innings pitched, just unbelievable numbers. So I mean that's a guy that I'm biased towards Phillies players in general. But yeah, grading like the ERA, the K9, limiting walks because that's deducting points, and just looking at the summary of like your weekly matchups. If you go into your schedule, you could look at like the weekly numbers that players kind of posted, and you can see like, okay, for this week, Arenado -2 points. Well, like as a third baseman, you don't want him to be negative throughout the week. You want to see positive numbers. So I do use that as like a tool to kind of weigh where my players are at, especially relief pitchers and how they're kind of comparing to opponents that I'm facing that week too. So I kind of look at the weekly summaries, but I like to technically have like usually 4 or 5 guys, relief pitchers that I know are going to probably get tossed in there for an inning or two, who maybe in certain save situations can pick up a save or a win. But I mean, you never know with certain guys. Sometimes they come in, they get rocked, and that's a big 9-10 points, and it could be the deciding factor in winning or losing that week.
Yeah. So we're gonna finish up kind of here with 2 final questions. Okay, one of them is coming, but before we get to that one, 3-3, 6 weeks into the season, where do you see yourself finishing? Do you think this is a year for a championship, or do you think this is just a year where you're going to make a good run, still learn a little bit just in your second year, and then next year really fight for that championship? Where do you see yourself going forward?
I would love to give you the cocky answer and say I'm going to win the championship, but I think a playoff berth would be an accomplishment to the season. I think the fact that I started 0-5 last year, I think I was 1-5, at this point. I guess now I'm 3-3, so a lot like more in the mix this year. I think I'm 4th in points scored. So again, I'm in like the top half of points forced. I'm putting pressure on my opponents, and I just kind of want to continue that and maybe get better, in certain areas of my team to where I'm starting to be over 500. Winning the games that you can win. And sometimes you lose the games that you're going to lose. Like you mentioned, I faced Danielle. I think I lost to you. I lost to Angel Hernandez. Is that you, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, so I lost to you. I lost to Danielle. I mean, again, tough teams. You're going to lose those games, but you got to win the ones that you're supposed to win. Beating Nick Moffitt last week, winning the week before that against, I think, Dave. So I'm winning the games I'm supposed to win. And then you're gonna get those matchups where it's hit or miss, and sometimes they have players that are hotter than the players you've got. So it's just continuing that. I like where I'm at right now, 3-3, as opposed to 1-5. And I think just making the playoffs and being like a 4 3rd seed, hopefully with the lineup that's ready to go in August. That's the whole goal.
Yeah. Well, and that's really what it is it's beating the teams that you should win, right? And then it's figuring out a way to beat the teams that are toss-ups. And really, especially once it gets into the playoffs, when they're 2-week games, it's at the end of that first week looking at him, oh, I'm down by 80 or I'm down by 90. There are ways to come back from that. And it's just kind of figuring out what those are. There's some new rules with the playoffs this year in transactions. So you do have to be a little bit more careful and mindful of those. But, best of luck to you getting to that playoff berth. Then the last thing we ask everybody every year, every week, what do you have to say to the rest of the league? What do you have to say to your opponents? This is your time, man.
Nick Moffitt should delete his account from ESPN and go make a Yahoo Sports account. because you don't know anything. You don't know a lick about fantasy baseball. He had Nathan Eovaldi on the bench who put up 40 points, didn't put him in. Then he had another pitcher who put up 30, didn't put him in. That could have been a deciding factor in winning that game for that week, and maybe putting him in like the middle half of the league right now. Now he's at the bottom, and it's a shame. But you really gotta be active. You gotta. I understand Danielle's in Indonesia, right? But she hired the assistant coach. She's got a friend who's looking after her lineup. That's huge. I'm going to be going on a cruise in June. I'm probably going to have like my best friend Matt here. Look at maybe have him sign into my account, keep my account active, make sure he's putting the starters, pitching, rotate pitchers around, manage the IL. So pay attention. We are taking this seriously. I work in baseball. I work in sports. This is what I do. I love doing this. I hear people say they spend 10, 15 minutes. I spend a half an hour just looking at my roster, just seeing like how I can make it better, just staring at it, looking at like matchups and stuff. So, so just it's a consistent thing. You got to stick with it, and just be ready, man. Because like I am hungry to get to the playoffs and to make my mark in this league. It's my second year. And there is no sophomore slump for this guy. No.
Ooh.
No.
All right. Well, I'm excited to see what you're going to do. Like I said, you are one of my favorite people to interview because you have that fire, right? When you come on, it's not just talking smack, or it's not just like, woe is me because I'm losing. It's here's where I am, here's the plan I have, and this is where I'm going to get to, right? Realistically. And I really enjoy that about you, man. But I've had a good time once again. I hope you have had the same. It's a late one that we're recording this week, just because of our schedules and stuff like that. So I'm sure you're a little tired. I know I'm a little tired, but I look forward to it, and we will definitely talk again this year. I definitely want to get a second one in this year, especially later in the season, because I'm excited to see where you get to.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited to see where your team gets, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again for a second matchup, and hopefully we can get on here before the season's over and talk again. It's always a pleasure, Josiah. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on, man.